former KSW title fighters battle it out in the confines of the small UFC Apex. I mean, listen, massive fights over in Europe to a tiny fight in front of tens. We have the Warrior Princess, Romanian-Canadian Diana Belbita taking on Poland's own Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and I'll focus on the younger fighter for just a moment because you know Kowalkiewicz for that massive win over Rosa Namajunas, a fight of the night at UFC 201 to get the title shot against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And that was not a good fight for Karolina. But for the younger fighter Diana Belbita, she was a kickboxing champ the world over. I mean, an IKF champ. She was a WAKO World Kickboxing champ back in 2012. IKF World Kempo champ in Kempo Karate in 2014. But for Belbita, always build out of Romania. She was able to kind of climb to the top of the mountain over with KSW, fought Ariane Lipski at KSW 39. That was a big Coliseum show. They headlined the prelims with a title fight. That's how good that one was. Belbita not on the winning end in that one. And then it was kind of a rocky way into the UFC. Didn't fight the highest level competition. It's been so-so in the UFC as well. But for Belbita, Matt, we can say it now. She's been fighting out of cottage country in Ontario for a bit. But now, Diana Belbita is a Canadian. She kicked off UFC 289 in Vancouver with a big time win over Maria Oliveira. Got the Canadian crowd into it. They were super behind Belbita. And I don't care if that Romanian flag gets flown. Belbita is now a Canadian. That kicked off all of the Canadians winning. And the last one was Mike Malott on that card. But Belbita with a big striking performance against the fellow striker Maria Oliveira. This is going to be the big story. Belbita, taller, longer, but she gives up distance in her fights. And for Karolina Kowalkiewicz, she still is able to throw that crazy output. She was on a 5-fight losing streak. It looked like the walking papers were on the line. But her last 3 fights out, beats Felice Herrig, old foe, beats Savannah Gomez Juarez, and her last time out, beat Vanessa Demopoulos through the 3 rounds. And so it's going to come down to this, Matt. ATT zone Kowalkiewicz, can she still pull that trap card of, I can close the distance, I can land the volume, like we saw even Hannah Goldie do as a smaller fighter against Belbita, though Belbita did drop her in the first round.
Oh, that was the hand. Here's the weird thing about this matchup. Karolina Kowalkiewicz has been a fighter who, there were those weird bouts of inactivity, right, during that losing streak, and you did wonder if she had retired on numerous occasions, but about her win streak, it has been nice to see all of that be somewhat recently, right? It's all kind of self-contained within a 1.5-year streak, which is nice to see her get 4 solid performances out there within about a 1.5 years, because we did have a lot of those questions just surrounding her whole entire career for the longest time. But this is a weird fight, because I feel like initially you look at the matchup and you think, hey, the UFC's doing a fighter who fought for a title dirty like they do most fighters at her age, right? A 37-year-old who had a big win streak, who isn't maybe in her prime anymore, is now fighting this newer up-and-comer, and it might make you think, oh, that newer up-and-comer is going to have a lot of success, but you kind of mentioned it. The fighters who beat Karolina Kowalkiewicz, for the most part, are able to mix their martial arts and not just allow her to strike on the inside, use the clinch, or even use some of the offensive wrestling that we have seen in her back pocket, especially in some of these more recent wins. But for Belbita, is she going to be able to threaten anything with her grappling, or at least be good enough to defend her grappling or defend the takedowns of Karolina? Because Karolina has improved a lot of that part of her game throughout this part of her whole entire career. She was just Muay Thai up until that title shot against Joanna, had a lot of losses, which really did force her to go back and restart her game. But I do think she has made a lot of improvements, even though maybe physically she might be past her prime. I do think her game is a lot more mixed martial artsy, if you will, than it was before. Well, she was a better fighter, per se.
She mixed martial artsied herself into a takedown and a submission against Jessica Penne, but then her next time out, she was able to do the same thing and look like a world beater against Felice Herrig. So what do I know? Matt, when you do look at a matchup like this, again, there's a 10-year age gap, which typically favors the younger fighter. For sure, Kowalkiewicz is a few weeks away from her 38th birthday. But again, I look at this one, Belbita's background, her first martial art was the judo before the karate and the kickboxing, but we don't see a lot of that. We do see a good clinch game out of Belbita. We see a good clinch game out of both of these
I favor
women.
Karolina, though.
But I'll be interested to see, Matt, what the fans think about this one, because again, the strike numbers are insane for both these women. When they're hitting at their peak, Belbita is somebody that can keep that volume for the 3 levels, and Kowalkiewicz is as well. I mean, both of them have fought in 5-round fights in the past. Belbita obviously switching things up from her native Europe down to House of Champions in Ontario, and when you look at it for Kowalkiewicz, originally training out of Poland, down to ATT. A lot of good Polish fighters out of ATT. You think of Boris Mankowski, who trains with Matheus Gamrot, who got the win in the last main event that we had when he was taking on Fiziev, although unfortunately injuries. Yeah. You look at the odds in the fight, Matt. I didn't know what they were until actually right now. Kowalkiewicz is almost a 2-1 favorite. We have a look at the fan vote. Surprise us, it is to you. I think it's going to be close. I'm going to say over under 65% Kowalkiewicz.
I think it'll be under.
It's over. Oh boy. 987 total votes, 85% Kowalkiewicz, 88% by decision. For the 15% that have Belbita, 85% by decision. Diana Belbita in the UFC, the losses. Molly McCann, somewhat forgivable. That was almost 4 years ago. Liana Jojua by submission. It was going really good until Belbita was going for takedowns against Jojua. Kind of that Kowalkiewicz against Penne. She got the win over Goldie, and then she lost to the old 6-6 Lori DePaula. So Matt, Belbita, not a great level competition. Kowalkiewicz, most of the losses to pretty good fighters. The wins, they've all been outside of the top 15. So who do you have in the matchup here?
Everything I've said and everything I know about MMA tells me I should pick Karolina Kowalkiewicz. She has the high level of experience. She's fought really just a lot of great fighters throughout her whole entire career. Even the Felice Herrig fight, like you said, that was the second time around. They had a really fun fight the first time, the first matchup. Carolina beats the brakes off her in the clinch. I believe it was a split decision, which is kind of ridiculous because Carolina convincingly won that fight. But given the fighter's a decade younger, I think Diana Belbita is going to be able to do enough on the outside to really make the fight uncomfortable for Karolina Kowalkiewicz to where she's not going to crash that distance, use her clinch, and try to initiate those elbows, because that probably is the best part of her game, and I could see her using that a lot in this matchup. Help her duck under for takedowns too if she is able to get into that clinch position. I just think Karolina's going to eat some shots on her way in for it, and I don't know if that's going to allow her to fight for 15 minutes.
Belbita looked amazing her last time out. Big improvements from that loss to Gloria DePaula to then taking on a tricky fighter, Maria Oliveira. Spider-Girl got a UFC win. So
I don't feel good about my pick.
Yeah, you know what? I understand where you're going with it. Give me Karolina Kowalkiewicz in the matchup, Matt. The keyboard warriors are going to be out there. But for me, I like the sustained volume for Kowalkiewicz. I don't see her having to defend a lot of takedowns. And it's not like she's taking on a striker like a Yan Xiaonan or one of those upper echelon fighters. We're still outside of the top 15. So I'm going to go with the longtime ranked party out of Poland in this one, Matt. We're split on the pick. Really eager to hear from the fans in this one. The fans over on Topology overwhelmingly going with Kowalkiewicz, who is favored in this one. So let us know who you have. Some big-time fights on this card, including, Matt, the co-main event, Bijo Pyfer taking on Abdul Alhassan out of Ghana. Let us know who you have in these fights in the comments. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. And as we always say, let's get into it.